Thank you. Folks, if you're interested, and I know you are, in a 50-50 ticket, they are selling very quickly. Barry is trying to push people away, but Barry is over here in the middle table, all ready to take your money. Okay. We're going to be doing a couple little unique and different things today. Again, for those that don't know me, I'm Don Weisenstein. The first thing we want to do is a presentation to the Hero Scholarship Fund. So I'm going to ask Dawn to come up. Ed, Bob, where's Bob? Would you mind joining me? And Rich.
Let me turn that volume up a little bit.
I have a life-size image of Mike, if you want to put that in.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that better?
Life-size image of Mike
go.
everywhere.
Okay.
So just take that in and just put it in the picture.
He was very upset he wasn't going to be here.
But as you know, we've had a law enforcement breakfast for many years now, and we've been able to garner the proceeds and through a 50-50, and we split those proceeds between two groups. The Goodwin Holocaust Museum, who we presented to last week, and we're very pleased to make another presentation to the Hero Scholarship Fund, and I'll let that picture go. And Dawn is here accepting on behalf of the Hero Scholarship.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
always a pleasure. The speech.
Would you like to say?
All right, what do you just want to know? All right, for those of you that don't know, the Hero Scholarship Fund is a nonprofit organization. We provide financial and educational assistance to the families of Camden County's police, fire, and EMS personnel killed in the line of duty. If anybody was killed in the line of duty, word to the family within 48 hours, we provide an immediate financial check to help them through. And then when the children reach college age, they can go to any college of their choice, and we pay out to the highest New Jersey state tuition. So, and any book expenses and stuff. And we give scholarships to graduating high school seniors as well. So we do a lot of fundraising events throughout the year to try to raise money for the organization. We rely on donations like this, and this is very important to us. So thank you all so much. The breakfast is a great thing. We really value people who do something for members of public safety that are doing something positive and something, you know, everybody always wants to focus on the negative, and the fact that you guys bring these guys around and, you know, give them credit for the things that they've done really means a lot to them. It helps their morale and keeps everybody safe, so we thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you.
Obviously, two great entities we're very happy to be a part of and supportive of. Okay, we're going to try something very unusual. We are going to have our Hamotzi, and we're having Mike Perloff, who is in Israel as we speak. He is going to be leading us in Hamotzi from Israel. The mic's not there. Mike, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone.
All right. Mike, we're waiting for your Hamotzi. Adonai, Ahenu Melech Haolam, Hamotzi Lechem Min Oretz. Hey, great job. That's a first. That's a first. Everybody enjoy your breakfast. How you doing? We have some AV equipment getting set up for our guest speaker, but in the interim, we want to keep things moving. First, do we have any guests that are new to our organization here for the first time? Anybody? Would you mind introducing yourself?
My name is Steve Schwartz.
Yeah, where do you live? What do you do?
Over in Forest Drive, 1700. And I think I recognize a few people here, but this is not too many. And I was asked to come by Dick Knott, I believe in Israel. And
tell us what you did in real life.
In real life, before I decided to retire, I was a school guidance counselor.
Oh, great.
Yeah, for 30 years in Gloucester Township.
Oh, that's great. Any hobbies? Anything?
Mostly I like swimming. I like to swim, and I also I do something called wogging, and then I do a lot of start out doing repairs. Most of it winds up being destroyed after a while. So I start off repairing things, and then they break down, and go on to another thing I can break down. So that's about it.
Great. Well, welcome aboard. We hope that you consider joining us. If you could leave your name and phone number with maybe Ed might be able to take that at least from you. But we're really glad you could join us today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'd also like to thank oh, there's no another guest? Was there another guest? Doesn't look that way. Okay. We have a number of our regular members in Israel today. They've been on tour, I think, almost 2 weeks now. Marty Raffner's there, Dave Schwartz, Dave Neidorf, Dick Knopf, Alan Finkelstein. I know I'm forgetting somebody else, too. And Mike Perloff. And, you know, it's great, and obviously it's a wonderful thing. We're looking forward to having them for future programming to, you know, let us know the experiences that they had. But while they were away, we had, as usual, guys pitch in and jump in because they do things, they do functions for us during the course of our meeting. And, you know, I'd just like to thank those. I don't know if I want to name names because I know I'll miss somebody, but I really do appreciate those that jump in and volunteer and things go seamless, you know, because we function so well as a unit. So thank you for that. And I'm going to also ask the guys that did the setup this morning, just wave, let us know where you are. The setup for the... Again, nothing happens unless somebody makes it happen. And, you know, some of you come in, the table's all set. Everything is ready to go. It's only because we have some real dedicated people that come in and do that for us. So we always appreciate their efforts as well as the cleanup crew. Okay, I'm going to ask Ed to come up for a finance report.
I have some name tags for people who joined recently. I don't know if they're here. If you are, raise your hand. Joel Greenwald. Jack Lewis, I don't think he's new. I think we just had to remake that. And Barry Chastanoff.
There we
okay.
go. Hey, you're official, Bear.
And don't forget to leave your name tags in the bags when you leave.
And it helps us if when you leave them, you actually put them in the package that has the letter that starts your last name. It's a lot easier for us to find.
And if you're confused about the letters, we have a lot of educators here who will help you with the ABCs. Guidance? Steve Schwartz. We're up to about, I got some checks this morning from a few people. We're somewhere around 70, 71 or 2. So we still have some people who are unpaid. If you're here today at breakfast and you still haven't paid me, I'm looking for you. So if you would, please put a check in the mail to me or give me one while you're here. What else do we have?
I was going to ask Len just to speak for a moment on mitzvah cards.
Yeah, Len?
Len, do you mind?
One other thing while I'm thinking of it. We're having an audit done right now by Jerry Riebstein. He's auditing my work from last year and our financials. So that should be probably ready within the month. And Len? You want to talk about mitzvah, or do you?
Well, there's not much to say about mitzvah cards.
Just come up though, so everybody can.
Not much to say about mitzvah cards, other than they are there, available, and if you have a simcha or you wish to send some sort of condolence note, they are there for you. Each one is handwritten, and each one is different. So it's not just best of luck or something like that, or we're sorry. So they are available. You get in touch with Ed, Ed gets in touch with me, and they are sent out the next day. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more thing. Philanthropic. We have a philanthropic committee. I believe Jerry Riebstein's going to volunteer to head that up. And if you recall, I think at our last meeting we mentioned that our first, I guess the first donation in quite a while we had made to the well, no, the GHMEC was actually the proceeds from the law enforcement breakfast, similar to what we did today with Dawn Reagan for Hero Scholarship. Now, the $250 that we donated was for the luncheon, the senior luncheon that was actually, it was to be held in the sukkah, and unfortunately it was rainy, so it was held inside, but it was a very nice turnout. We got some very nice recognition. Marcy Lahav mentioned that we had sponsored the luncheon. We had a singer there that we sponsored, or she actually sang and played the guitar. So, thank you.
Thanks, Ed. I also want to mention that through the efforts of Gary, we've been getting some great coverage as far as photos in The Voice. We have one here from last month's meeting where we presented the Goodwood Holocaust Museum, and we're portrayed here. And we also have one that was in The Voice for our help with the sukkah. Personally, I like the second one here better. It portrays your president with a little thinner pose. So, Gary, thanks for doing a great job with that.
Can I say one more thing I forgot to
Sure.
mention? I'm working with a group occasionally who has outings in South Jersey. And they have one this Wednesday. They're going to Woodbine, New Jersey. You've probably heard of it, the Sam Aziz Holocaust Cultural. It's like a little museum in Woodbine, which is kind of halfway to the shore outside, a little bit kind of near maybe like Seattle City, but about an hour from here. It's a tour of the museum. There's a speaker. There's no charge. It's suggested, I think, $5 a person donation to the museum. And if you're interested, come see me after the meeting. I'll tell you who to contact. It's a self-drive, you know, down, there's no bus or anything. And afterwards, there's a little restaurant right in Woodbine, which is like a 2-block down. There's a restaurant, and they're going to have lunch. And lunch is on your own, obviously.
Great, Ed, thanks. And by the way, I want to recognize too, Joel is filling in for Dave, who is in Israel and doing a great job. So, you know, even when somebody...
Is it Dave or Joel who's doing a great job?
Both are doing a great job. And again, we really appreciate it. Dave Schwartz asked me to remind everybody we have a joint meeting with Bethel in November. I believe that's around the 22nd, but it'll be sent out to you. And I believe that will be at Bethel itself and free to our members, if I recall. So we'll send more information out about that, but it's a nice opportunity.
Yeah, just so everyone, Bethel does have Minion at 9 o'clock. Everyone's welcome for Minion, and then after that, the breakfast.
Okay, and Rich, can you send a reminder out on that? Would that be all right?
Okay, yeah.
Great. Barry is going to speak a moment about some JAG information.
The Sports League's first meeting will take place in about 10 days. The league is healthy. We're ready to go. Next Sunday night is JAG's bowling tournament. South Jersey Men's Club has 2 guys expressed interest. We'd love for about 2 more at least. If we get more, we'll form 2 teams. Anybody here now who might be interested in bowling next week? Anyone might be interested if I give them $10?
Make it 20.
If you change your mind, please send me an email this week, and we'll get that going. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Dave, if you'll come up, and Dave's going to talk about the ABC events that are coming up. and some changes that we recently did with those.
Yeah, as you know, last month I talked about trying to get a group of people going to 2 different events. If there were 10 people or more going, we would get a 10% discount. And so we sent that out and followed up with email. And we had, for the 2 events, 9 people willing to go to one, Ted Koppel, and 6 to Susie Essman. Well, if we didn't get the 10, I could not get the 10% discount. So since I knew that sales were going very, very fast, I told everybody I was tearing up all of their checks and to immediately go and buy tickets, because I think Koppel and Susie Essman have now sold out. So if you had given me checks before, hopefully I got to you in time for you to buy the ticket. The other thing is that I will be introducing the speaker for the session dealing with rock and roll era and Blood, Sweat, and Tears. He's a guy that was a member of the Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I'll be introducing him, and I sure as hell hope we get a group of people coming out to see me and him. And for those of you that like beer, there will be free beer at that particular event. I believe it's Tuesday night, and the guy is, I believe Steve Katz is his name. I didn't know him from before, but I did know Blood, Sweat, and Tears. So hopefully you guys can come up and see me at that time. And that's about it for the Arts, Books, and Culture.
Thanks, Dave. I just wanted to call to your attention also on the back table, actually behind Ed Sover, we have books. Please, if you have finished a book and you would like to share it, please bring it in and we'll try to get it recirculated. The same holds true for CDs and DVDs. Toiletries we still collect back there. Cell phones, eyeglasses, and I'm probably missing one thing. And food. So please, let's not forget bringing those things in, and we'll get them circulated to those that are in need. Ed, I know you were involved at Stein with the food drive. Can I bring it back up just to give a summary?
Thanks for reminding me.
We did have a food drive, and I know Ed participated.
Well, there's a bunch of guys in here, I don't remember, if you would just raise your hands, who were involved in sorting, bagging, schlepping. There was the food drive was, all the groceries were delivered to the new annex down the street. They were brought in by the trucks from the various synagogues. We carried them in to the gym. They were sorted there. I don't know who was involved in the sorting. I know I was not, but I'm sure there were people here who were involved in the sorting. Then they were trucked over to the Jim Beach's office on Route 70, where the food bank is, in the basement and also in the first floor. And then I know a number of us were over there in taking the actual cans and bottles and whatever. And in the basement, they have these storage shelving, and we sorted them into the various, types of food. And then we were also involved in bringing some upstairs where the actual people come for picking up the food. So I know Andy Lowe was very appreciative of our help. I know she called a couple times and people came like the next day and helped out, and it's really worthwhile. I mean, a lot of food goes through there. I was amazed at the amount of food that goes through there, and I know you've heard this before, there's a lot of people in this area who really need the food. It's a very worthwhile thing to do, and if you're interested, if the next time we're called, stop and see me after the meeting and say, hey, I'm willing to help on a day's or two's notice. Usually we try to go like the next day if they call us and help with the sorting of the food.
Thank you again, Ed. Also, a reminder, we have a project that we started a couple months ago. We call it, for lack of a better term, our Taskmaster. Essentially tries to coordinate our efforts when we have people that are volunteering to help us with some activity. So I'm not going to bring it out this month, but next month I'll have it again. We certainly and always appreciate anybody's effort to support some of our endeavors. So don't be shy. Please feel free to volunteer to help out. Also, I know we have some additional shirts that Barry brought in. If for some reason you don't have our official South Jersey Men's Club shirt, you could see me at the end of the meeting, and we'll see if we have the sizes that might match up to you. If not, we'll probably be putting another order together shortly. Okay, thank you with that. Okay, I want to ask Bob to come up for actually 3 things, and one of which will be introducing our guest speaker, but he's going to be speaking about the Passover Partners and the human menorah.
Hey, good morning, guys. First thing I wanted to talk about is the Passover Partnership. Basically what this is, there are members right here in this group who, when it comes to Seder, don't have a place to go. So it's a program that we're trying to introduce where we'll match up those who don't have a place to go to people who are willing to open up their homes. And what we'll be doing is we'll be doing a sign up. I'm not going to do it now because it's a little bit early for Passover. But just keep that in mind, and we appreciate all the efforts. This past weekend, we had something called Menorah Mania. If you were not familiar with that, there was an attempt to set the Guinness Book of World Records as the largest human-formed menorah. They had 306 participants. We were there helping out. We were selling food. Ned Bolmash headed that up. And I don't know whether they set the record or not, but it was a heck of a turnout. Yes?
It had to be the record because it was never done before.
I don't know. That's not true. Actually, that's not true. They wanted to do a star, but they found that what happened was that there was no differentiation between a 5-pointed star and a 6-pointed star, so there was no real Jewishness to that record. So I really do think that there is in the Guinness Book of World Records.
They told me that it wasn't done before, but you know.
Hey, listen. If it wasn't, we're in. That's all I can say.
Did they light it?
Excuse me?
Who's the shamus?
There's a few responses which I don't think we want to go into.
Presidency Rick. I happened to be at the board meeting of the Mid-Atlantic region, and I started to discuss joint programming with the idea that I would take back to the board. But before I take it back to the board, I'd just like to get a sense of the group. One of the temples does a Sunday night football, if it's the Eagles, as tonight, or if it's a Monday night Eagles game. They actually have a football program where they all meet, at least for until halftime. And we're talking about possibly joining them next year. But I don't want to even raise that issue until I find out. If we actually had a joint program where we did Monday night football or Sunday night football, how many of you would be interested in attending? It would be at one of the temples. Okay, so it's not a huge. Okay, so I'm not going to raise it because I wanted to see if there was an interest in it.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Anybody else want to make an announcement before we start with our speaker? Okay. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for this month. Ron Safier is the executive director of TBS, but he's not going to be talking about that. He's going to be talking about his experiences in 2014 as a civilian volunteer with the IDF. So, Ron?
Thanks, Bob. So yes, my name is Ron Safier, that's true, and I am the Executive Director of TBS, that is true as well. I live in Voorhees with my wife and 4 boys. So last summer, I was in Israel with my oldest son, celebrating his upcoming bar mitzvah. And on our second day on the trip, we were in Jerusalem when word came out that they had discovered the bodies of the 3 kidnapped Israeli teens. And that was on our second day on the trip. From there on in, tensions were pretty high. You may have heard that there was a retaliation killing of a Palestinian boy immediately after. So there were riots, there were protests in Jerusalem, parts of the old city we couldn't even go to. We proceeded with our journey. Rocket attacks against Israel were increasing at a very alarming rate. By the time we got to Tel Aviv 10 days later, the Knesset called up 40,000 reservists, and the IDF started lining up troops along the Gaza border. We were on the rooftop of our hotel in Tel Aviv in the pool when we heard the first sirens. Was there a video? Okay. Video on there?
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Hopefully the sound will work for that so you can appreciate what these sirens sound like. So we were on the rooftop of our hotel when we heard the first sirens. Everybody made their way to the bomb shelter, and from that moment on, people running to seek shelter.
Okay, let's get into the shelter right now.
That's my kid yelling at me, what the hell are you doing? Videotaping this, but you know, over the course of the next few days. Sure. So over the course of the next few days, the sirens were constant. In our room, on the beach, riding bikes, out to dinner with friends, and each time we had to go and seek shelter. So I was pretty eager to get my son home, but I felt guilty leaving. When my friend drove us to the airport, I gave him a long hug goodbye. I wished him and his family well, but I didn't feel right leaving. So I got home, took my wife out to dinner one night, got a few drinks in her, and asked, can I go back? I'd like to go back. I feel the need to help out. And so I heard of a program called SARL, which is a division of Volunteers for Israel. And I understand that maybe a couple of your folks, members are there now, volunteering. And so people said to me, how can you go back? How can you do this? This was right when the war was breaking out with Gaza. And my response was, how can I not go back? This is really the time to do it. And for me, it was very personal. There were a lot of reasons. I'm a lot of things. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a director of a nonprofit, I'm a Little League coach, a Cub Scout leader, and I'm an American because I happen to be born in this country. But above all those things, I'm a Jew, and I'm a Zionist. And that's deep down in my core, and that's why I really felt the need to go back. My father was from Lvov, Poland. His entire family was wiped out, his parents, 5 brothers and sisters. He was able to make his way to Israel through Anders' army, a branch of the Russian army. It's actually how Menachem Begin got to Israel as well. It was in Israel where he met my mom. It was in Israel where my 3 sisters were born. And you know, Israel is very close to my heart. And it's one of the main reasons I wanted to go back and help support those who are defending the land of Israel. So I went back on a 17-day program. When I got there, I didn't know where I was going to be. I didn't know where I was going to be based. I didn't know what I was going to be doing. They send you this T-shirt, so when you get to the airport, they know who you are, and they put you on the bus, and it's really not until you get to your destination where you find out where you're going. So they took me to an army base called Nach Shonim, which is kind of halfway in between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. They told me that I would be supporting the combat engineering unit, so I was very excited. And my job was twofold. Part of my job consisted of unloading the tanks that were coming back from the Gaza war, unloading the tanks, cleaning the equipment, getting the equipment ready. I was also responsible for packing the combat soldiers' backpacks with all their equipment, all their ammunition, and that was a task that I did not take lightly. I mean, I would check every backpack 5, 6, 7 times just to make sure I had everything in there that was supposed to be in there. And they also tasked me with the responsibility of taking inventory of ammunition and moving ammunition and explosives between warehouses. There were long days, up early, go to bed late. My bed was a cot, and it didn't matter. You're so exhausted by the time you get back to your room at night. But it was an extremely rewarding and fulfilling job. You know, I had an opportunity to take some photos with some of the equipment they had me working on. Ironically, September 11th was one of the days that I was working transporting some of the ammunition and explosives. I used to live across the street from the World Trade Center for 5 years, from 1996 to 2001. And the summer of 2001 was when the company I was working for transferred me down here. Somebody moved into my apartment September 4th of 2001, a week before 9/11. So on the anniversary of 9/11, I was transporting some of these ammunition, explosives, and missiles. I got my hand on a Sharpie, and I wrote some nice messages on some of the missiles. And that's basically it. That's my story. Dave Schwartz reached out to me a couple of months ago, asked if I could come by and talk to the group about the volunteer work that I did. Basically, anybody in this room is capable of doing something like this. They have 1-week programs, 2-week programs, 3-week programs. As long as you're physically capable, they provide the meals, the housing, they subsidize some of the airfare. And I left some brochures on the table in the back over there if anybody's interested in volunteering with Sorrel for Volunteers for Israel. And I'd be happy to field any questions, if anybody has any questions.
From this area, did you go by yourself? Was there a contingent? Give me a little idea.
So I went back to Israel by myself, got to the airport. There were, other individuals there who were volunteering as well. There was about 15 of us that ended up going to the Army base that we went to. There were maybe 50, 60 people total at the airport waiting to be transported to various Army bases. There were about 15 at ours, a few Americans, a few guys from Italy, really a pretty large geographic contingency of those who love Israel. And not everybody who did it was Jewish. Yeah. A lot of Christians feel very strongly about the state of Israel and that it belongs to the Jews.
Evangelicals.
What's that?
The evangelicals.
Yeah. Probably the biggest reason, right, for all that we hear what's going on in Israel right now is because the Palestinians, the Arabs, claim that we are occupiers of a foreign territory. And That's not the case. And even the Christians who believe in the Old Testament, it said it in the parsha that we read this past week, Lech Lecha, right? It said, God tells Abraham, go to the land that I will give you. So right there, you know, and it states that, you know, Israel was given to us by God, and even in future chapters of the Torah, it even lays out geographically the boundaries. So, yeah, there were Jews there, primarily Jews, but also non-Jews who feel very strongly about the state of Israel and the Jews' right to exist there.
Ron, I assume you're fluent in Hebrew, but if someone is not, how would you communicate with your supervisors?
I'm not fluent in Hebrew. אני לא מדבר טוב, אני מבין קצת, so I don't speak a lot of Hebrew. I understand. At times, there is a little bit of a language barrier. Most Israelis will speak at least some English. There are those that don't, but it works well enough, you know. Take this, move it there, you know. A lot of, you know, hand gestures and finger pointing, and it's enough to know what needs to get done. And yeah.
How do they determine which particular group you go into? Because you're working in a very, very, you know, important place.
So they do kind of divide the roles and responsibilities based on physical ability. You know, there is a bit of a process you go through before you get into the program. You know, they do a little background work on you, and you know, there's a physical you have to go for, paperwork you have to fill out. Not so much background checks, but references that need to be provided. So they get to know a little bit about you before you go. There's a process you have to go through, and I think based on that, they will determine who goes where and the type of job that's assigned.
You know, Israel security seems to be able, you know, to contend with the Palestinians and Hamas. But my question is, and I don't know their answer, but how long can this go on? I mean, without conceding more of Gaza or whatever has to take place to bring peace there.
So I don't really want to get into a political discussion. You're asking me my opinion, and if you want to know my personal opinion, there's never going to be peace because they want us dead, they want us out. That's my personal opinion. There are those in the room that might have other opinions, that there is a potential for peace. But until they will recognize Israel's right to exist, they will not even, it's in the Hamas charter, kill all Jews. They teach little kids, kill Jews. We don't belong there. We're occupiers of a foreign territory. In my opinion, there will not be peace because they refuse to accept our right to exist there. I don't know how you overcome that.
Between the reservists that were pulled up, and the people in the shelter, did you get a sense of what their response and attitude was to all this?
So, here's what I'll tell you. We had breakfast, lunch, and dinner with all the soldiers, right? It was interesting. All the volunteers kind of sat at their table, you know, for every meal. I didn't sit with the volunteers. I worked with them. We slept in the same barracks. I sat with all the soldiers. Every day, every meal. I got to learn about them, their families, their girlfriends, what they plan on doing after they get out of the army. They were very appreciative. They said to me, why are you here? Why are you doing this? Because they had no choice, right? They get out of high school, they go into the army. We have a choice to go and do that. So I would tell everybody my story about why I went back and why I was doing this, and they were blown away. You know, they couldn't believe that there were people outside willing to do this, because what do they know? All they know is what they hear in the news. That the majority of the world is anti-Jew and anti-Israel. So it was very comforting to them to know that there are people outside of Israel who care about Israel as much as they do.
What about the people in the shelters? What was their response to all that?
When you say shelters, you mean when we would hear a siren and we'd go into a bomb shelter? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very nerve-wracking moment when you hear that. And even in the bomb shelter, we could hear boom, boom, boom. Iron Dome in action. You could hear it from inside of the shelter. And, you know, girls are crying, you know, so sometimes they're a little bit more crowded than others. It depended on where you were. one time we were in a shelter, I'm talking to some woman, she happened to know one of the rabbis at my shul. So you never know who you meet in a bomb shelter.
Can you just take us through a little more detail, like a typical day?
So I would get up pretty early, you know, right as the sun was rising, and I'd go outside the barracks, and I would start my day off by davening. I would watch the sunrise, and I'd start davening, and it was one of the most fulfilling things I would do every day. Go to breakfast. Breakfast was at about 7 a.m. And then you're kind of getting your assignment for that day. You know, in my case, it was either in the tanks division or working with you know, the ammunition and explosives, or cleaning equipment that we took out of the tanks, and we'd work through the morning until lunch. Lunch was always a great meal, really good food. Fresh vegetables, hummus, chicken. Pita, lunch was great. You don't want to eat too much because then you want to take a nap. But right after lunch, you go right back to, you know, what your assignment was. Sometimes they would switch up the assignment, you know, midday, and then you would work straight until dinner. And then evening was, they usually had some type of activity for us, for the volunteers, or they would do something. You had to stay on the base for the entire week. You couldn't leave until Shabbat. On Shabbat, you were allowed to leave. On each Shabbat, I went straight to Jerusalem. Has anybody here ever experienced Kabbalat Shabbat at the Kotel? So you know what an unbelievable experience it was. So I would go to the Kotel with some of the soldiers, and it was one of the proudest moments of my life. One Kabbalat Shabbat, I mean, yeah, of course I'd have to say the birth of each of my kids, but to be at the Kotel, Kabbalat Shabbat, and dancing in a circle with all the soldiers, it gives me chills right now. And in one of my posts I wrote, have you ever tried singing while crying? It's hard to do. And that's what it was like for me.
Did you meet any Israeli Arabs, or did you have any contact with, because there are Israeli Arabs there. Did you ever meet any of them?
A lot of Druze. A lot of Druze working on the military bases. I have come into contact with Israeli Arabs, not necessarily in the army base that I was working at, but, you know, during the course of my travels in Israel. Not all of them hate Jews. Not all of them. Not all Muslims are bad, you know? It's the extremists, but it's just it's a tough issue, you know, with what you asked before, and I don't know how you turn the tide. I don't know how you turn that tide. It's so deep rooted of you know, not giving Israel its right to exist.
If Israel, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
How long were your assignments? In other words, you were saying sort of weekly, but was this for a month?
So they have various programs for various durations. They have, I think, as little as a 1 week program, 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, and longer. I mean, months you can do this. They need people year round. They need certainly when things get heated. You know, when there's, you know, a war going on, they'll need extra help, but they need help year round, all the time. And really, anybody in this room is capable of doing it.
Let me ask another question about, if Israel is considered an occupier, in China, when they have people in the Muslim schools teach hate, they take over the schools, and they bring in their own people to indoctrinate the kids. If they're the occupiers, why doesn't Israel take over the schools and change the entire curriculum so these kids don't get that hate?
Well, you're talking about changing over the schools that are in Gaza, that are in the West Bank, because those are the schools where it's being taught. It's not being taught in Israeli schools. Israeli children are not being taught these things. It's the Arab schools. It's the schools in Gaza. It's the schools in the West Bank. It's in East Jerusalem.
West Bank is still part of Israel. They share those areas, don't they, West Bank? Well, they say we're the occupiers, so why not go in and occupy? Take it over.
you know, I guess there's got to be a balance there, right? I mean, you see what the media does already, right? You know, the headline the other day is Palestinian shot while boarding bus. The headline should have been terrorist shot while about to massacre 40 kids. You know, so the media doesn't, you know, help us.
Are they affected by the media, the Israelis? I mean, you know, we know that it's landed, and you know, who cares about the media?
Well, it's discouraging, and it pits the world against us, right?
So we've been that way, right? Most of the time.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
What does it say in the front of your shirt?
What's that?
What does it say in the front of your shirt?
Volunteer. They give you this shirt before you leave. They mailed it to my house. They said, wear this on the plane. So they knew who I was when I got there. And they give you the hat and the dog tags.
Ron, what did you have to bring with you? They tell you in a frame stuff, or?
Yeah, well, I guess part of it depends on what time of year you're going. When I went, it was August, so it was hot. You know, one of the first things I tell you is pack light. But one of the things they recommended, I'm glad I did, they said bring work gloves. And that was probably one of the most important things I did bring with me was the work gloves.
What was your expense? Airline tickets and things like that?
Really just the airfare, which they subsidize a little bit. And then I guess any travel, you know, that you want to do when you leave the Army base for Shabbat, you're on your own on Shabbat. Actually, I take that back. They do have a hostel, if you will, in Tel Aviv, where soldiers and volunteers can go and stay for free, if that's what you want to do.
Well, Ron, thank you so much. Very interesting. Free one-year membership for a group as well. You get to wear more hats.
All right.
but thank you. It's a very interesting presentation, and perhaps a lot of others that would avail themselves. Now, you also do this for us. If you'll pull a 50-50, but don't give the number out. I'll do that after I do a few announcements. I like to keep them in suspense.
$53 is the winning 50.
53.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
50-50. 53.
Momentary delay while the president puts on his glasses so you can see the number. And just so happens I have a couple other announcements. Just a couple. I believe there's going to be an investment club meeting immediately following. And I know you're all in suspense as far as our fantasy football and our standings, so I'm going to give you...
And there was only one team that went undefeated since the last meeting, by the way.
And that team would be?
That would be my team.
That would...
Surprise.
Our team is undefeated since last. We beat you.
Currently, we have 3 teams tied with 5-1 records. Ed's, Bob, and Rich is also a part owner of that team, and yours truly. Boo.
Who's fixed?
Art is tied with the Big Chill, Mel, at 4-2. Nuri Lee is 3-3. Mike Perloff from Israel is at 3-3. Our past president Jerry Mitzner is 3-3. Larry Klee is 2-4, and then we have 3 guys that are, I'll just say, bringing up the rear. Marty, I understand why he's in Israel. He's had a couple of good years in our first 2 seasons, but he's currently working on an 0-6 record. But he doesn't have to look over his shoulder to see who is gaining on him. That's the advantage. Okay, winning ticket for the 50-50. And don't forget, by the way, the things on the back table and to see me if you need a shirt. 745-389.
Right here.
745-389.
Hey,
Barry slipped him that ticket.
another fix. We have it on camera.
Guys, thank you for attending today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Football already started. Any other announcements from any of the board we need? That's it.